Hello everyone, Mr. Holmes here. Time to get started with a clam dissection. As you notice, I'm wearing a welding helmet. I don't know why I'm wearing a welding helmet, so I don't need it. I'm wearing a safety vest to be safe in case any trucks come driving through here and I want them to see me. So we can undo that, give myself a little breathing room. Alrighty then. Safety glasses, do we need them? No, we don't need safety glasses. However, we are not going to use those. Those are too big, bulky, and dangerous, especially when working with slimy clams. Clams can be a little slippery. So, I am, however, going to use these. Not because I'm afraid of touching a clam, but because the clam can be slippery and the rubber surface might be a little bit more safe in being able to grab it so I don't slice my finger with a scalpel. Oh, wait a minute. It's missing something. It's missing a scalpel blade. So, those of you who have done dissections already, this is old news. But a scalpel blade, surgical blade, it's extremely sharp. They use scalpels to cut into people. They gotta be really, really sharp. So we're gonna put our scalpel together something like this. Slowly, and you snap that just like that. And you pull that paper off. You hang on to the paper in case we want to reuse the scalpel. So just fold it up, set it down. Doctor, please put your mask on. Wait a minute. I'm the only one here. I don't need a mask. Excellent. All right. So, gloves on. Being careful. Safe. Now, I'm using Hardy work gloves. They're a little warmer. I'm not afraid of touching clams. How about this clam, by the way? This clam is the North American Eastern sea clam, otherwise known as a surf clam or a hen clam. I don't really know why hens are associated with clams, but it's a hen clam, a New England hen clam. By the way, a little bit about myself. I love clams. And I love clams so much that we're going to take a good look inside one and see what makes it tick. So I've got my trusty notes here, and I'm going to turn the camera down to the work surface, and I'll be talking to you, and we'll see if we can find the parts of the clam. So stand by. All right, folks, here we are. Let's take a look at this clam. First of all, we're going to take a look at the shell. Let's see if it, ooh, a little water there. Take a look at the shell. All right, so this area right here is called the umbo. The umbo, U-M-B-O. It's the, and this is your hinge area right here on the outside. And the shell itself is, the thickness of the shell is made up of 3 separate layers. The inner layer is called the macreous layer, and the layer in between, which we really can't see, is called the prismatic layer. And the outer layer, which is this black stuff I'm kind of scraping off, is called the periosteum. So, and if you see these lines right here, those are growth lines. Okay, kind of like it, very much like a tree. If you look right here, you see a dark growth line. It's very deep. So there must have been something in the environment at that particular year that caused that clam some distress in its growth. So there's a big line right there. Either that or the ocean was rough during that time, and as that layer was growing, it kind of got worn away a bit. Okay, so this is a sea clam. It belongs to the phylum. Remember we were talking about the taxonomy. And phylum is one of those levels of taxonomy. This one is called mollusca, and this is a bivalve. A bivalve has two shells. Okay, a monovalve, it only has one shell. So let's dig in here. If you look onto the inside of it, let's see here, I'm kind of going by. So if you look right here, this is it has two adductor muscles. There's one over here. This tissue right here, let's see if I can get that right so you can see it. Yeah, that tissue is called the mantle. It's the mantle, and this is actually kind of like a diaphragm that we have in our body that moves and breathes. Okay, so I'm going to take and cut this adductor muscle right here so that we can open the shell and see what's inside. And once that adductor muscle is cut, it should open up pretty easily. There we go. All right. So this tissue layer here, if you look at that right there, it's really thin. It's kind of dried out right now because this one's been sitting out thawing. But this is the tissue that actually kind of moves and helps move water flow through the clam itself. This edge right here is called the ventral margin, and that's actually, in a lot of ways, that's where its sensory glands are, like the tips of your fingers. It can sense in intruders trying to get their way in, and it senses the water temperature and all of that. So I'm going to take this mantle, and I'm just going to kind of cut that mantle off. I'm kind of excited today. I've never really looked for a clam heart before, but hopefully we can find the heart of the clam today, or this evening. Actually, it's evening. It's kind of a nice evening out too. So I'm just going to cut that back. There we go. I think I'm going to move the camera a little bit so we might get a little bit better view of it. There we go. All right. So I'm taking a look at what we got in here. First of all, this right here, that is the adductor muscle. The adductor muscle is what holds the two shells together. There are two adductor muscles. I am pretty familiar with the clam anatomy because I love to go clamming. And I eat a lot of clams. And there's no fat in clams, so it's good. So this is the other adductor muscle, and this is the other one, so there's two of them. Okay, so if we look inside the clam right here, this thing right here, we can pull that out, and it looks like a tongue. And I'm going to turn that up a little bit so you might be able to see that a little bit better, a little bit closer. This item right here is not the tongue. It looks like a tongue. It's actually the foot. And this is the part of the clam that sticks out of the clam and helps move it. Pretty good. All right. Also, looking at the clam, I'm going to take this other shell and break it right off so that hopefully we can see a little bit better into this clam. Over here you have these brown layers right here, and these are called the gills. Okay, well, these are the gills right here. Okay, the gills, it's, you know, being dead and being a clam, nothing stands out straight and says, hey, here I am. This one's all kind of slimy and kind of hard to keep track of, but those are the gills. Okay, so I'm going to take those gills and I'm going to try and remove the gills. so we can see what's under them. The gills have two functions. The two functions are, number one, respiration and circulatory. In other words, it helps get oxygen through the clam. And the other one is it also takes the food out of the water, because a clam eats by circulating water through the gills, and algae and other biological matter get caught in the gills and they get funneled into the stomach of the clam. So we've got, I'm going to remove this adductor muscle too, because we're getting further into the clam here. This scalpel's pretty sharp. Ooh, look at that. Popped right off. All right. Ooh, that one popped right off too. It's separating from the shell pretty easily. It doesn't do that when they're live. They're very tough creatures when they're alive. All right, so I'm going to cut that adductor muscle right out of there. Okay. And after this dissection, I'm going to have a short talk about what you can do with clams if you're a Maine clammer and you love to eat them. All right, let's see if we can get rid of this adductor muscle here. There we go. I can pop that one right out with my fingers. There we go. So there's an adductor muscle right there. It looks a little bit like a scallop, actually. I'm going to very carefully set the clam aside. I'm going to cut the muscle right in half, like this. And I'm going to take a look at the end of the muscle that I cut. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe not. There's, yeah, you can see it if I turn it. Little bumps in there, those are the muscle segments of the adductor muscle. Right there. And actually, if anybody here likes scallops, this is what you eat when you eat a scallop. A scallop is a different clam of sorts, very similar. It's also a bivalve, and it's the muscle that's very extremely tasty. And there's only one of them in a scallop. There's two in this clam, but there's only one in a scallop. So here we have this gooey mess here, and we're going to see if we're going to try and identify the rest of the stuff that belongs to a clam. Now this part right here, this was laying right over on the side of the clam over here, and this is the combination. It's called the inhalant and exhalant siphon, and a siphon is just a fancy word for a tube. But this is where the clam sucks water in and spits water out. So it sucks the water in, and here's the big one is the inhaler, and unfortunately that one's been cut because it goes right past the adductor muscle. And the exhalant is right on the top. The opening is right here, and that's where it exhausts water and waste from the body. And you can see right here, this is a tube that comes from the stomach. This is your rectum, and that's where it gets rid of waste from the stomach. But your inhalant brings water into the clam, into the whole area, and it kind of filters through the gills, and then the gills pull the food into the stomach. So I'm going to take and remove the clam from the shell and lay it right here on the table. This is the mantle right here from the other side of the shell. So that was attached to the other side of the shell. This right here, from here to here, is the foot. Inside this area here is your stomach, your intestinal tract. It also has the gonads, which are the sex glands. There are muscles that we can't see very well right here. There are mouth parts where the food goes into the clam that are very difficult to find. But this mass right here is very jelly-like. But this mass right here is actually the auricle and the ventricle. And if you remember from middle school science, learning about the human heart is made up of 2 auricles and 2 ventricles. And this is the clam heart right here. It's not very good lighting here. I'm going to try and turn and move it closer so you can see that. There we go. All right, so I'll put that back. Can you turn that down for me? I don't want to get clam. All right. So I'm going to cut the foot off. Oh, that might be better there. Good. I'm going to cut the foot off and see if we can find some of the abyssal gland, the gonad, and let's see what's inside the stomach. So let's cut the foot off right about here. By the way, if anybody eats or likes clam strips, this is the foot, and this is what goes to make clam strips. That's part of it. If we open the foot up, the foot is actually hollow, sort of. It's held together with some tissues. Oops, where are we at? There we go. No, let's get that in the camera. There we go. Some in with the tissues there. You can see the tissues holding it together. So this is the foot, and we're just going to set that aside. So let's take a look inside the foot here and see if we can being really careful with the scalpel, because the scalpel is actually meant to cut human skin, which makes it really good for cutting clams too. So for those of you who are doing this in class, be very careful on where that is going at all times. So it's hard to identify what's going on here, but this in here is where the gonads are. And the intestinal tract, we're going to be getting into that in a moment. If you pull it back like that, you can start to see some types of what looks like intestines in here. This is a clam, so unlike mammals, there's not a lot of definition, and we're cutting into the stomach right there, and there are the basic parts. Also, inside here, I don't know if we can find it. And there it is right there. This right here, that little thing, slimy little thing right there, that is a gelatinous tube. And it's kind of strange, but this thing actually goes down the esophagus, and it kind of acts like your esophagus, and it helps move food into the stomach, and it also secretes enzymes that help with digestion. It looks like a clear worm, and if it dries out, it may totally disappear, but if you add water again, it will puff right back up again. So that item is called, I have to look for it. It's in the stomach section. Gelatinous rod. Hello, folks. So we're going to go over the parts. The camera battery died, so we're going to go over the parts and show you good pictures of them. I only have so much battery power left, so I'm going to have to move a little quicker. So let's take a look at this, just to review. This is the mantle and the siphon here with the stomach. And the heart right up here, the colored area, is the heart. This is your adductor muscle. There's 2 of them. This I've spread out here. It's a very thin layer of tissue. Those are your gills. And right here is your foot that sticks out of the clam. Now, I didn't show that before, but right here is the clamshell, and inside is the inner layer right there in your hinge area, and there's ligaments and tendons right there in the hinge. And this area right here is part of the mantle, and this is the area that the clam senses stuff with. And this here, that little clear thing that goes in the stomach right there, it's called the stylus. All right. So thanks for joining. I'll be giving you instructions on what to do with all this information. I hope you enjoyed it. And while I've got a few moments left, I usually harvest about 3 gallons of this clam meat every year, and it only takes a few to make an amazing clam chowder, or clams on linguine, or clam fritters, or clam and eggs in the morning. Anyways, hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk about notes during class. Thanks a lot. Bye.